So what's great about Scholarship Night is we build on the foundations of those who come before us, our heritage. And the game plan here is to pay it forward to the future leaders. And that's one of the great things about geology. And tonight we're here to recognize the 2021 Scholarship Award winners from being recognized by HGS. My name is Charles Sternbach. It's my honor to be your Scholarship Night chair and your MC and host for this evening. Next slide. So talk about pay it forward. We have to begin every Scholarship Night remembering and giving a shout out to John Tubb, who took the HGS Scholarship Night to greater heights than it had ever achieved before. And he passed the baton to me, and John, I say thank you, and thank you for all you have done as the past committee chair. And this is my third year in this role, and we'll talk a minute or two about these last couple years. But I would like to ask if there are individuals out there who would like to step forward to serve on the Scholarship Night Committee and who might also like to consider serving in the role of committee chair. Next slide. After me. So in the last couple years, first 2019, we had a lot of fun. A lot of you may remember we had two vice presidents of exploration telling us about their great careers. Bobby Ryan from Chevron and Cindy Yielding from BP. And that was a special evening, and we recognized our scholarship winners. And we also handed out copies of the book, Heritage of the Petroleum Geologist, that I'm holding up in front of me. And for those of you who would like to get a PDF copy of it, send me an email at carbodude@gmail.com, and we'll try to put a link to it in the chat. But it's a wonderful series of stories with career advice from incredible men and women. Next slide. Guest Night 2020, last year, we really strove to take Scholarship Night to greater heights. And by that, we mean astronomical heights. We had astronaut and geologist Jessica Watkins, and here is Jeff Lund and I presenting her with the Mars Globe Award, a book on pioneering women, and a Never Stop Exploring t-shirt. Jessica told an incredible story of her own challenges overcome, and she's a member of the Artemis generation. So for NASA, they're the group that will go to back to the moon and may go to Mars. And I couldn't resist. I took a picture of Jessica's feet, and you can see in the lower left why I did that. Those feet may one day walk on the moon or Mars, and we hope they do. And when they do, there'll be a geologist's boot print there. Next slide. So when our committee pondered the question, what should we arrange for this year? We thought, you know, we ought to ask the scholarship winners to tell us some of their stories, some of their experiences. And we thought this would be not only entertaining, informative, but also inspiring. So thank you, Scholarship Award winners. You'll each be given a chance. You're invited to say a few words as you're recognized under the respective scholarship programs, the Calvert and the Foundation. And we're going to invite you to say a few words, and everyone will get a chance. Next slide. So the game plan for tonight, I'd like to thank our program coordinators, Linda Sternbach, Diana Fu, Andrea Peoples, and Alicia Cushing. In a moment or two, we'll hear from Jim Tucker, the HGS president, followed by Bryan Guzman, our HGS vice president. We'll thank our sponsors. We'll hear about future officer candidates for HGS. Then we'll get right down to the scholarship programs, where Jeff Lund will, as the committee chair for the Calvert Committee, will give us some background on the Calvert, introduce his committee, introduce the students. And then Joe Lynch, who is the head of the foundation board, will say a few words, introduce his committee, say a few words about them and then introduce the students that are being recognized under this program. And for all of the students, we'd like to ask you to please be muted during the program, but when it's your turn to be recognized and have your 60 to 90 seconds to speak, please unmute yourself and share with us, if you will, some of your plans, experiences with jobs or aspirations or connections, your experience with STEM, geology, maybe a favorite teacher or hero or funny story, anything that you would like to share with the group. And as you're speaking, we would like to ask your fellow students and all of the audience tonight to share in the chat. If you'll go to the chat on Zoom, you can type in questions, and our HGS President-elect, Mike Erpenbeck, will be collecting the questions so that after each of the students have a chance to speak and the reports are given, we can entertain the students with questions. And so please be writing your questions in the chat. And so our plan is to wrap up around 8:30. So with that, next slide. It's a great pleasure to introduce the HGS President, Jim Tucker. Jim, would you please say a few words to the group and tell us about the Office of Candidates, please?
Yes, thank you, Charles. And everyone, welcome to this special night every year for the Houston Geological Society. For many of us, it's our favorite meeting of the year because we have an opportunity to meet our future colleagues, in this case, remotely, as we've done so many things this year. But we look forward to seeing you in person at professional meetings throughout the year and for many years to come. The HGS, as the largest local geoscience society in the world, takes a special delight in this because we see it as our responsibility. And some of the foundations that have been established that coordinate via the HGS, you'll hear a little bit more about in a few minutes. And we're very pleased to be able to host this evening every year and get to know our new colleagues. If I could have the next slide, please. Also, customarily at this meeting for the past several years, we have the annual announcement of nominations for the board, which will, the elections for which will be in a couple of months. There'll be information on the candidates in bulletins soon. And the terms for the HGS board executives are July of 2021 and extending through June of 2022.
Congratulations to all the officer candidates. What a fine slate of officer candidates. Thanks for your service, and it's a wonderful thing. We appreciate you. Next up is Bryan Guzman, our HGS Vice President. Bryan, would you like to say a few words about the incredible program this year and recognize our sponsors?
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction, Charles. Always appreciated. And always a pleasure being able to serve in the capacity that I've been able to do this past election cycle. So thank you guys all for allowing me that. It has been asked of me to recognize the sponsorship for this event. So I wanted to get started by recognizing our gold level sponsor, Rockflow Dynamics, followed by a short video showcasing T Navigator. All right, next I wanted to recognize our silver level sponsorship. Thank you to these companies who have taken time to donate to us and our cause. Next up, bronze level sponsors. And finally, individual sponsors. So with that, please take a moment to recognize all the sponsors you've seen here today. And if you happen to see them at a conference, be sure to thank them the next time we get to do in-person events, that'll be. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And on behalf of the Houston Geological Society, I want to thank you guys, sponsorship, for believing in this event year in and year out. Without your support, we couldn't host things like this. So with that, I just will conclude my section. I think the floor is back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Bryan, and thank you for all your service and the wonderful program that's you're directly responsible for. A word on the sponsors. As we've realized over the years, this has been a particularly tough year, so we really, really appreciate this year's sponsors for stepping up. And, you know, a lot of them have been smaller independents and individuals, and we are so grateful for what you're doing to help with the students. So we can't thank you, sponsors, enough. So with that, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Jeff Lund, who chairs the Calvert Memorial Scholarship Committee. Jeff is a great friend, a past president of the Houston Geological Society. Jeff, would you share with us a few words about your committee, the history, your goals, and most of all, the wonderful students that you're going to introduce us to this evening? Take it away, Jeff.
Okay, I'd be glad to, Charles. Thank you. Calvert Memorial Scholarship is a fund that was established in the early 1970s by an HGS member, Warren Calvert, and he left a bequest of money to HGS to be governed by a board of HGS members to provide scholarships to geoscience graduate students. So our scholarships go directly to geoscience majors who are graduate students in accredited universities. We do it pretty much across the country, concentrating on schools that have students who will probably go into economic geology and primarily oil and gas. Our board now consists of myself, Richard Bishop, Dick Bishop, who's a past president, who is our treasurer, Julie Schulenberg, our secretary, Nicole Villarreal, who is my co-chairman, and then Mike Erpenbeck, who is the president-elect of HGS, and he is our liaison back to the HGS board. Okay, next slide, please. This is a graph. I'm just trying to communicate here the diversity of schools to which we've given scholarships since 1978. A little bar chart. You can see that the major schools that have been recipients of the largest number of scholarships are ones you might expect with robust geoscience programs oriented towards economic geology. LSU, Rice, Texas A&M, U of H, UT Austin, and the University of Oklahoma. But we've also spread ourselves out, and we're soliciting input from other applicants from other universities. And we've had several this past year from schools that had actually never been participating before. One notable one is the University of Montana. So we are trying to support graduate students, master's and PhD. As I mentioned, Warren's original contribution was 1974. We actually didn't have enough money to give a scholarship until 1978. And then things have been very favorable for us, primarily through these events and through donations from the Calvert family and from other HGS members. And through 2020, we have now awarded over $633,000 in scholarships to students at 27 different colleges and universities. Okay, next slide, please. In 2021, we awarded more scholarships than in any previous year. We gave 8 new scholarships to students who had never received one before. They were new applicants, and you can see the distribution. And then we had a number, 10 continuing scholarships to students who had previously applied and gotten their first year and then continued their studies successfully. And so we continue to support them as they go into the future, as they make progress towards their degree. So a total of 18 students receiving assistance from Calvert. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is start the evening with our individual opportunity for the students to introduce themselves and speak to us a bit. And I have a list of I think we have 16 Calvert recipients. We'll go through that list in alphabetical order. Most of the recipients are, I believe, participating and logged in. A few were unable to. And we'll start that with Allison Barbado from LSU. Allison, are you there?
I sure am, Jeff.
Great. You want to, now we can see you, so go ahead and give us some of your insights and thoughts.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, first of all, I hope everyone's doing well, and I just want to say thank you to HGS, really for providing such a generous scholarship and for continuing to fund students, especially right now. When times are so tough, that really says a lot about HGS. So I just want to say thank you for that. I go to school at LSU right now. It's my second year of my PhD. Kind of a funny story, I guess, about me was that I didn't start out initially wanting to do a PhD. I started out with my master's, and really for most of undergrad thought that if you were getting your PhD, you're a little crazy or something. But I ended up enjoying my project so much over the years, which was in biostratigraphy, that my project just started to grow and grow. And what started out as an initial biostratigraphy project in Oregon has now turned into a full-on source rock characterization project where I'm integrating biostratigraphy with geochemical parameters like TOC, thermal maturity, and we're even integrating some organic petrography. So this project has really blown up. I've been loving it a lot. And for the last year, I've been president of the APG chapter at LSU, which has, of course, been unique during COVID. And Jeff actually came and spoke to our APG chapter. And we have, essentially what I've been building is a year-long short course for all of our students to hear from experts in industry, to talk to us about, whatever topic they are most familiar with. So I just want to stress, I want to offer that to anyone listening right now. If you'd like to come and talk to our group about anything that you are an expert in, anything, some wise words of wisdom even right now, please send me an email or find me on LinkedIn or something. We'd love to have you. I think we have maybe 10 talks scheduled for this semester, but we'll get you set up for next year. We would love that. So that is what I've been busy with. And then I have an upcoming internship with Hess in Houston this summer. So really looking forward to that. And
great. And we love the fact you're actually involved with APG there at LSU. That's great.
Yes. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun, really bringing that together.
Sounds great. All right. Edgar Contreras from the University of Houston. Are you there, Edgar?
Yes, I'm here.
You got the stage.
Yep. First of all, I want to say thank you to HGS for their very generous scholarship. It's really helped a lot, especially these last couple of years. And then, so I've been, I'm second year into my PhD at the University of Houston, working under Dr. William Sager. So my research focuses on integrating a variety of geophysical data to get a better geological perspective on Valdivia Bank, which is a part of the Walvis Ridge hotspot trail in the South Atlantic. Also, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I began an internship at Fugro Marine USA. And then I can thankfully say that this year in the middle of the pandemic, I received a job offer from them and I accepted it. So I'm a geoscientist at Fugro right now. Of course, it's a little busy with school, but I'm definitely trying to balance that out. But it's been really a great experience so far. And I very much enjoy the marine geophysics side of things in my research and in my job. So thank you.
Fantastic. Brianna Crenshaw from the University of Montana, pioneering AAPG's presence in University of Montana, I believe. Are you there?
Yeah, definitely. There was like a couple presidents before me, but we definitely don't have a huge program here. I'm sure it's unsurprising. My name is Brianna Crenshaw, and I'm a master's student at the University of Montana. But just to give some quick background context about me, for my undergrad degree, I actually went to LSU and I did research there in coastal sedimentology, and I defended my undergrad thesis there. And then after I graduated, I immediately came up here to the University of Montana and have been doing research in metamorphic petrology ever since. So for my master's program up here, I've TA'd mineralogy for a few semesters, but my research here is actually focused on this crazy type of metamorphic rock that I refer to as COG for short. And what's special about it is that we basically think it's 3 billion-year-old oceanic crust that can tell us a lot about the tectonics that led to the creation of the geologic core of North America. So I'm looking at geochemical analyses of that and using those analyses to model its thermodynamic properties. And it has really crazy textures and really crazy mineralogy. So it's just been a super fun thing for me personally to study. But I am nearing, thanks, the end of my master's degree because I plan to graduate in April. And as of now, I am definitely still hoping to go into oil and gas. I did do IBA last spring, and then last summer I actually did a virtual internship with SM Energy. And they were both just amazing experiences for me. And basically what I did for SM Energy was I was part of one of their asset teams in the Permian Basin, and I closely collaborated with their machine learning artificial intelligence team and helped create a model that uses artificial intelligence actually on seismic data in order to predict drilling speeds in the subsurface. And then we use these models to basically predict drilling complications, and this helped us optimize our overall well development strategy. And it was just an awesome experience for me. And I learned a whole bunch and basically hope to continue going on into oil and gas because I really do love it. So that's where I've been and where I want to go. Also, I just want to thank HGS for the scholarship because it truly has been invaluable to me to get my degree, but then also to just, still be AAPG up here and be involved in that. So thank you, HGS. I appreciate it so much.
So you have another active AAPG chapter there.
Yes, we do have an active AAPG chapter, and actually Corey Talcott, who is one of the other scholarship recipients, him and he's the president this year and I'm the vice president currently. So y'all got the powerhouses up here.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Sydney Dangtran, are you there from A&M?
Yes, I'm here.
You got the floor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Dangtran, and I'm one of a few fast track students at Texas A&M here tonight. I'm getting my bachelor's, master's in geology, and a minor in GIS in May 2022. And I wanted to express my sincere gratitude for making the Calvert Scholarship possible. And I am, of course, deeply appreciative of everyone's support. My research is over Middle Cretaceous unconventional plays and reservoir distributions on the western margin of the East Texas submarine plateau. I'm doing so through well log correlations and XRF correlations from some cores in Polk County. I just wanted to say thank you so much again.
Well, thank you. Okay, Helen Hammond from LSU.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Clearly, my dog wants to join in with us. Sorry, I'm gonna put him away. Ollie, stop. Come here. Sorry about that. I'm currently getting my second. I'm currently in my second year of getting my master's degree. Sorry, I'm very getting my second year getting my master's degree at LSU. A little bit of background is I went to UT for my undergraduate and did research in methane hydrates. And then actually took a year off between my undergrad and my master's degree and worked for Premier Oilfield Group in Houston. And I helped them make their big geochemical database called DataStack. So that was a really good transition for me for my year between my undergrad and my graduate degree. And I'm continuing some geochemical work now, working in Martin County in the Midland Basin, looking at Permian age rocks, doing like looking at the heterogeneity between the geochemistry during the Permian age and linking that to sea level changes. And yeah, thank you again for the scholarship so much. I really appreciated it.
Thank you. Molly McCrary from A&M.
Hi. Yes, I'm here. Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making the scholarship possible, especially during COVID. We had a lot of issues. We couldn't access any core labs because they were all closed because I'm studying the Austin Chalk. I'm part of Texas A&M's unconventional reservoirs group. And so the cores I'm looking at are at the USGS, so we couldn't go to the federal facility where the cores are stored. So I used the funds for a lot of my outcrop work, which was so incredibly useful. And so I study Austin Chalk in both the outcrop and the subsurface. And one of the facets of my project is seeing if we can use X-ray fluorescence, an XRF unit in the field, and that we can use that with as a proxy for cores. And so that's kind of what I worked on for the past year. And I will finish my master's in June, and then I'm interning with SM over the summer.
Fantastic. Syed Masabi from Rice, are you there?
Yes, Jeff. Thank you very much. I'm here. So good evening, everyone. I hope you and your family are well during this COVID time. It is a pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm extremely thankful to Houston Geological Society rewarding this Calvert Memorial Scholarship. First, I would like to tell you, I ended up choosing geology. Now where I come from, a scope of geology is very rare, not familiar with the subject background in 2001 when geology was initially introduced to me. So I was quite amazed. So I did my undergrad in 2005. After that, I started working in the services company in Halliburton in 2006 as a field engineer, then jumps to the geosteering side of the business and worked there for almost 8 years. So when I came to US, it was my dream to get a degree from a top class university from the US. So I was work hard to get an admission. I would say because of this ambition, I was able to accept it in Rice. And at Rice University, the one-on-one attention is very great, which allowed me to further go in depth knowledge on geology. So I have gained the university, and it landed me a position to get in the operating side of the world. So right now, I mean, it's truly understandable the oil market is quite slow due to the pandemic. And currently, I'm actually starting a project with one of my professor in the Jurassic Reef System in Northern Australia, and also looking for an internship. And my expected graduation date is May 2022. And I would like again thank you everybody, Judy, Andrea, Jeff, and the all HGS Society for awarding this scholarship to me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All righty. I think our next participant is Eric Pavey from Texas A&M. Eric, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go for it.
Hello, everybody. And thank you also, Jeff. My name is Eric Peavy. I am a third-year PhD student. Before I talk about what I do, I just want to thank the HGS Scholarship Committee. The Calvert Memorial Scholarship actually supported me through, I believe, 3 semesters of my master's, and then also when I went to work. So I'm one of those folks that did a bachelor's, went to work, then did a master's, then went back to work, and then came back for a PhD. So I enjoy pain of the academic variety. And so I called up Judy and I said, is there any possible way that I could, get back into the Calvert Memorial Scholarship and all of this? I can tell you everything about what I'm doing. She's like, yeah, no problem. So then I got the letter in the mail after I think I reapplied, and I have been supported now for, I believe, 2 semesters again for the Calvert Memorial Scholarship. And I just want to thank HGS again, and also the sponsors for making this all happen. Like, we are all very grateful for you and the donations that you give to all of us starving graduate and undergraduate students as well. So thank you. So anyways, about me. I did my bachelor's at Southern Connecticut State University. It's a small state school. And I was actually interested in meteorology. With my background of math and physics, I couldn't get into a geology program, but I was able to get into Texas A&M for my master's for geophysics. So I went into geophysics and then immediately switched to geology so that I could pursue that, because I wanted to work in the oil and gas industry. And so my master's project focused on the Eagleford and unconventional reservoirs, and I've continued doing that type of work with my PhD. So my PhD work is focused around geochemical fingerprinting of the upper Wolfcamp, everywhere from Wolfcamp A to Wolfcamp B, within the southern part of the Delaware Basin. And the goal is to use outcrop and subsurface data in both with data analytics and also machine learning techniques to better understand lateral variability and facies changes and things like that. So aside from that, I'd say an interesting thing this year is that I actually had the opportunity to get out of the house back in June, and I took a cross-country road trip with my roommate, and we went all the way up and we hiked quite a bit of the Appalachian Trail, and then went up to the White Mountains in Vermont and hiked Mount Washington in one day. But we kind of didn't plan properly, and so it ended up being an 18-mile hike, and we didn't get back to the car until 10 p.m. after sunset. We kind of got lost, and it was pretty crazy, but it was awesome, and it was great to get out of the house during the pandemic. And so I hope that everyone stays safe and remains healthy through this time, and hopefully we can see each other in person in the future. And then the only other thing is that I have an internship with Chevron over the summer, and I will be working with the Clastic Seismic Stratigraphy team.
Sounds good. Yep. You sound like an adventurous geologist, huh? Crazy like the rest of us.
I love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Okay, now Ben Richards is our next student from Texas A&M. Ben, you there?
Hello all, I am here.
Yep.
I just want to say I've had the pleasure of meeting or working with half the professionals and students on this list. So, it's a pretty great crowd. For those of you I haven't worked with, I look forward to meeting or working with the rest of you. I didn't know I was going to have past committee members from my master's, looking at you, Dr. Wellner, and current committee members like Dr. Nick Perez on the list, or I might have prepared some more formal remarks. But Nick, I took this picture of Canyonlands on one of our trips with A&M. And I just want to say, like Eric, I took a somewhat circuitous path to where I am now. Started out as an anthropology major at Texas Tech, but, like a lot of us, one geology class, and that was all it took. So I got a master's, I worked for a bit, but long story short, I'm now in the 4th year of my PhD, and HGS has helped immensely with the scholarship. So I just want to extend a thank you to all of you. And I'll say that I interned at SM this past summer, and fortunately, I'm going to be moving to Denver to work full-time, predicated on actually completing my PhD. And, I have Houston in my blood now, but I could hardly think of a worse place to go than Denver. So pretty great for a geologist. So again, thanks to everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Richard Robinette, are you next? You are out there someplace, right?
I'm here.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for putting together this scholarship night. Thank you for the scholarship. It was very helpful this year for me, as I'm sure it was for everybody that received it. I'm currently in my fourth year of my PhD. Initially, I started in environmental science, so I wasn't planning on doing a graduate degree in geology. But while I was doing my bachelor's in geology or in environmental science, I had my undergrad advisor, who was a geology professor at Louisiana Tech University, really get me interested in geology. So after completing my undergraduate degree in environmental science, I ended up at LSU working with Dr. Occam Herman, and my research is focusing on looking at the relative contributions of climate forcing versus tectonic forcing to some large scale environmental changes we see during the early Cadian in what is now the Southern Appalachians. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. And as I said, I'm in my fourth year. So, the later you get into it, money funding becomes more of an issue. So yeah, I'm very thankful to you guys for awarding this scholarship to me. And I'm a part of the AAPG chapter here at LSU. So thank you to Allison Barbado for putting together everything she's done this year. I was actually able to tune in and watch Jeff Lund's talk during the fall. So thank you, Jeff, for doing that talk. It was very interesting.
Sure.
But yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I have. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan Rosal from University of Oklahoma.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan, and first, like everyone else, I really want to thank you for the extreme generosity of the scholarship. It's helped me quite a bit. I had a bit of a transition in between advisors. I'd originally started out with Dr. Slett here at the University of Oklahoma, who passed away last February. So the transition between him as my advisor and to Dr. Pranner, the scholarship really made that possible. I'm glad to see that there's so many other people that have taken sort of meandering routes to make their way into geology, because I originally started out as an economics major at the Naval Academy and then finished a finance degree at the University of Toledo before I moved to Oklahoma and started working for the Federal Reserve and got introduced a little bit to oil and gas there, and then started working for Chesapeake Energy in Oklahoma City in non-ops revenue audit, and got exposed to a lot of geologists that eventually convinced me that that was something that I would really enjoy. And at the University of Oklahoma being so close, it was an easy move, especially when gas was down to $1.20 an MCF at the time. And so I started my undergraduate adventure at the University of Oklahoma and just fell in love with geology. And because of the great education that I've been able to get there, I've had a lot of opportunities as an undergrad. I had a chance to do research and eventually do an undergrad internship with Citation Oil and Gas down there in Houston and Cyprus, which reinforced things a little bit more for me, how much I enjoyed things. And then Dr. Slack gave me an opportunity to continue my education at the University of Oklahoma and start working on my master's degree there. And then I got a chance to come down to Pioneer Natural Resources in Dallas and work with their subsurface technology group and work on machine learning and predicting fractures in well bores so they could adjust mud weights, and getting access to more and more sort of proprietary data was really interesting. I've transitioned more and more over to machine learning as far as developing predictive models that I'm applying to my master's research, which is sedimentology and stratigraphy and reservoir quality up in the Anadarko Basin in the Marchand Sandstone in Oklahoma. So I'll have a chance this summer to work with the subsurface technology group at ConocoPhillips for what feels like another very long internship. I'd like to finish at some point, but I'll have a chance to go there. I was supposed to be there last summer, but unfortunately that sort of got converted over to short courses because of the pandemic. But hopefully everything goes well and I'll get a chance to work down there and to continue my work there as far as with fracture prediction. And as far as the scholarship is, like I said, has helped me tremendously. I work over at the Oklahoma Geological Survey in the core warehouse there. I'm in charge of the core collection for Devon Energy that stores there. So it's given me an opportunity to see a lot of research other people wouldn't see, and to advance my education in many different ways. And so I'm looking forward to being able to hopefully move forward into oil and gas again, which was my goal in the first place. But the scholarship has been incredibly helpful in making that possible. I just want to thank you.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Okay, Andrew Stearns from the University of Houston.
Hey, can y'all hear me? Great.
Yep,
I just want, y'all can hear me, right? Yeah, I just want to take the first second to, like everybody else, just thank the committee for continuing this scholarship program through this year. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. And I do appreciate y'all taking the time to continue this work. But one good thing or interesting thing that came out of this was my advisor, like Ben mentioned, Dr. Julia Wellner was able to make it. Unlike last year, she's usually in the Antarctic at this time. So it's nice to have her here this year. And it's interesting to hear some of y'all talk about y'all's path through geology and path to this point. And I guess I have a little bit more of a direct path through kind of growing up with it and being a second generation and geologist, where, I went on vacations as a kid, and stopping at outcrops became one of those things that I just kind of got used to. And going on field trips later in grad school or in undergrad, it's like, well, this is how I normally vacation. So it's interesting going through that process. But I also grew up in Houston, and it's interesting coming to the end of my time here in graduate school as a master's student. And me and Dr. Wellner kind of came up with a project idea of studying Hurricane Harvey and the sediment transport that I'm sure a few of you have seen at some of these conferences with Jerry Kendall, if any of y'all are familiar with his work. But we came up with this idea of trying to study sediment transport from major flooding events. And it's amazing that we've come from that idea, or large scale idea, to coming to the end of this project here and studying the different routing mechanisms and kind of the story of the storm from both the scientific perspective and the city perspective as well. And I've really gotten a lot out of it, and the scholarship has helped me get through it as well. And it wouldn't be possible to be at this point without that support. But also through this, I've been interested in getting into the oil and gas business through that kind of lens of sedimentology, through a virtual internship last summer at Shell in the South Perdido area. I've been involved through IBA and Evolve and in my local APG chapter as well. So thank you again for continuing this program, and I definitely look forward to seeing more UH students get involved in this as it goes forward.
Great, thank you. Corey Talcott.
Hey everyone, I am the other University of Montana recipient of the HGS Scholarship. And I just want to first start off and thank the committee for including us in this consideration and allowing us to apply and receive this scholarship. It's extremely helpful. But yeah, my name is Corey Talcott, and I'm a second year master's student here at the University of Montana. And I originally got my Bachelor's of Science in Geology at Texas A&M University, and my undergraduate research in the Eagle Ford Formation, where I was working with Dr. Pope and Roy Conte on well log correlation and 1D basin modeling really is kind of what led me to pursue my master's here with a specific research focus on sedimentology and reservoir quality evaluation. And that kind of leads me into what my graduate thesis work is, and that is the analysis of rock core from the Wolfcamp Formation near the northeastern margin of the Midland Basin. And really this study is focused on documenting the nature and the timing of the mineral phases. So basically the paragenesis and the pore body evolution for two of the wells that are currently producing that are located on a distal to proximal transect. So I'm kind of looking at those and using a systematic combination of visual core analysis, petrography, XRD, and SEM analysis to basically provide the basis for better understanding down dip variations in the pore evolution within that Wolfcamp B formation. So really the end goal of that project is to improve the predictability of the reservoir quality. And if everything goes as planned, which I think it's going all right now, I'm planning on defending and graduating in May. And then after I am done with that, I will be interning with SM Energy over the summer. And I've also interned with Pioneer Natural Resources this last summer as a virtual internship. And that was a great experience. I got to work on the geophysics team where I was able to use some really incredible 3D seismic and interpret faults throughout that, and then apply that fault interpretation into a fault modeling program and Move 3D or 3D Move, and basically use that as a proxy for fracture intensity away from the fault, and basically determine if there's any production degradation or operational issues that are associated with that strain field from that fault. But yeah, anyway, so thank you so much for including us in this scholarship consideration. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think we have Richard repeated on the slide, so we can't give you double time, but we'll go to Alex Washburn from Texas Tech. Alex.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me be here and for all of the support from this scholarship. I am a third-year PhD student at Texas Tech University. I did my master's degree at Brigham Young University, and I did my undergrad, my bachelor's degree at Texas Tech. And the reason why I actually came back to Texas Tech to do my PhD was because my wife, she really loves Lubbock and she loves Texas Tech, and she is also working on her PhD at the same time as I am, except she works in biomedical research and she's way smarter than I am. But I really love being able to be back here, and mainly what I'm working on for my PhD dissertation are bedding parallel fibrous calcite veins. They're commonly known as beef calcites. And what I'm trying to do is I'm working with my advisor, Dr. Paul Sylvester. He's kind of a specialist in laser ablation techniques, and we are using laser ablation to do uranium-lead geochronology of these calcite veins in order to understand sort of the diagenetic factors that led to their formation, and also the timing of that diagenesis, and then the timing of natural fracture systems that host them, in order to understand more about paleo overpressure, the formations that we find them in, and also about their natural fracture networks, in order to understand more about maybe hydrocarbon migration and issues related to that. And so it's really interesting research. It's for my master's degree, I did something very similar where I did rhenium osmium geochronology of a source rock in the South Caspian Basin in Azerbaijan. And I did chemostratigraphy and rhenium osmium of the primary petroleum source rock there called the mycope. And so it's been really fun to learn all the geochemistry and the geochronology of petroleum source rocks, and I'm really doing it because I I want to learn as much as I can about this stuff because I'm also interested in working in oil and gas. I've done 2 internships so far with Chevron and EOG Resources, and then I'll be doing another one coming up with Pioneer Resources. So hopefully things go well, and we'll see what the pandemic holds in store for us. But again, thank you very much for this opportunity, and it's great to be able to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think last word, we had 3 students who were not able to attend: Nicholas Dusak, Scott Gifford, and Matt Sexton. Have anybody else from Calvert that's been able to sign in that were?
Yeah, Jeff, Leah Evans, I believe, has joined. Leah, are you out there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Howdy. Well, first off, thank you so much for sponsoring our scholarship, and thank you so much for allowing me to join. I'm a little late. I actually tutor Calculus 2 and 3 and couldn't get out of work till 7. So yes, in my free time, I like to do double and triple integral calculus. But anyway, I think my story is a little unique. I knew that I wanted to do geology and go into the oil and gas industry since I was in high school, because A&M puts together a summer camp for high school students that takes them through some exercises in exploration geology. But my work, I'm a first year graduate student, and I'm currently studying the distribution of the Eagleford and Woodbine groups in the Northwest East Texas Basin. I'm looking to incorporate core data, outcrop work, and subsurface work, which seems like a lot, but I've really got a great group of people to help me, including who I think you guys were already introduced to, but Molly and Sydney and Ben and Eric. In fact, even as an undergrad, Eric helped me get ready for my first interview with an oil and gas company, and it was successful because last summer I was able to internship with EOG Resources as an undergrad, and thankfully I must have done good because they extended my internship to this coming summer as well. So
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much. That was very impressive and very interesting for us to hear. And I want to thank all the Calvert recipients for participating. And I guess my parting message is oil is $56 today, and it was $35 when we sent out your last scholarship check. So things are looking better. And be glad to hand off now to the foundation. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. So on to the Houston Geological Society Foundation. We're the kind of junior member here because we didn't get established until 1984. And one of the differences between the foundation and the Calvert Fund is that we're focused exclusively on undergraduate geoscience majors, and also specifically in the area of Southeast Texas. We've got a few different criteria to the Calvert for awarding scholarships. The process is that it's done with nominations by university geoscience departments, and then the trustees review and decide the awards. And we've provided over $300,000 in total in scholarships since the inception of the award back in 1984. There are 3 types of awards. There are the scholarships. There is the Maybe Scholarship, which is the scholarship that's awarded to the most outstanding student in the Southeast Texas area. And there's the Basinski Scholarship, and I'll talk a little bit more about the Basinski Scholarship in a few minutes. So that's the award side, the outgoing side, but we also are involved in fundraising. So we get funds in through HGS events, through the vendor corner, through bequests, and through donations. And if anyone wants to donate, please feel free to contact any of the trustees. The trustees are myself, Sharon Lemke, the secretary, Angela Hammond, the treasurer, and you can read the others from down the list there. But I'd like to pay specific mention to Evelyn Medvin, who was our previous chair, and Evelyn did a stunning job. She was an outstanding fundraiser, and she was extremely well organized. And in particular, she did some work to help establish the Brzezinski Scholarship, which is what takes us to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So a little bit about the Brzezinski Scholarship, because this is the first year that we've made the award. So here's something about the background. And the background is that every year the HGS Foundation sees a deserving candidate that's got a compelling life story, but the candidate doesn't quite meet the criteria that we have for the award of a scholarship. And that's partly because the criteria are weighted towards academic performance. And some recent examples there are a student that spent their early years in a refugee camp in East Africa. Another student that, because of a family situation, needed to work to support a sibling in addition to studying for their degree. And I think they were working double shifts at McDonald's, kind of hard life. Then there's others that have served in the military and experienced challenges. So what the Brzezinski Award does is gives us the opportunity to support this type of student who's working their way through some form of adversity or other. Now, Paul Brzezinski, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And I know that there are people on the call today who know Paul personally. There's a couple of pictures of him here over on the right-hand side. The picture on the bottom, I suspect, was not taken in Houston. The clothing gives it away. And just in case you don't know where Franklin Bluffs are, they're a little bit to the south of Prudhoe Bay up in Alaska. So Paul was a longtime HGS member and supporter, and Renee suggested to us that there wasn't a better way to honor his memory than supporting this next generation of geoscientists. So with Paul, Evelyn, and the trustees, we decided that we'd create a new award to the person that exhibited the most personal and scholastic growth, getting through obstacles in order to succeed, because we believe that's the way that the best reflects the values that Renee and Paul cherish. So this is the first time that we're awarding the Brzezinski Award, and the inaugural winner is Stephen Casper from Sam Houston State University. So Stephen is a senior there. He's doing a degree in geology with minor math, and he's also acting as a teaching assistant with Dr. David Moss in paleontology. He has published a poster about some unpronounceable fossil that I'm not even going to attempt to try to say, and that was presented at the GSA South Central Section meeting in March. His intention is to pursue a master's degree in geology. So the reason he gets the Brzezinski Award is that Stephen started out his working life in law enforcement. He first worked as an emergency services dispatcher until he was old enough to go to the police academy, which he attended up in Lufkin, Texas. He came third out of his class of 30 there and spent 12 years as an officer. So he still holds a commissioned peace officer license as a reserve deputy constable at the Walker County Constable's Office in Precinct 3. And then with a great deal of support from his wife, Stephen left full-time law enforcement to pursue his lifelong dream in science. So we trust that the inaugural Brzezinski Award will help Stephen through his studies. So Stephen, if you'd like to say a few words of introduction.
certainly. Thank you very much to everybody for the scholarship. I'm very honored to be receiving it. I do want to absolutely say thank you to my professors, Dr. Bryan Cooper and Dr. David Moss. Without them, I certainly wouldn't be here. It's sort of an unusual path to be a geology major at this point, but I actually started out as a physics major, and after my physical geology and historical geology classes, it pretty much got me hook, line, and sinker, and it's just something I haven't looked back on since, and I enjoy every day in class, and I hope that I'll be able to continue everything in grad school and from there on.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on down, the first of the HGS Scholarship Awards also goes to Sam Houston State University, and that's to Caroline Bienvenu, who's a junior there, majoring in geology with a minor in math. And while she's been there, she's maintained a 4.0 GPA and does help to tutor her fellow students in math and geology. And understand that when she's not studying, Caroline volunteers as a maintenance officer with the Commemorative Air Force. Caroline's accompanied by Dr. Bryan Cooper. So Caroline, if you would like to unmute and say a few words.
Yes, good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank those who have donated their time and of course money to the scholarship fund and made it possible for me to receive it. And my professors as well, who have nominated me for the scholarship. It wouldn't be possible without them either. I enjoy tutoring my fellow students, of course, in math. That's probably my favorite thing. And this year this semester, I got but chosen to be a teaching assistant for a historical geology course. And so far I have a lot to learn, but it's been really enjoyable. So I hope I can give back by teaching others geology and what I'm passionate about. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Okay, the next award is to Jake Goins of UT Austin. And Jake is studying general geology at UT. It looks like he enjoys a challenge. Because he's got a minor in Russian language and spent some time studying in Moscow and St. Petersburg. In addition to that masochism, he's also pursuing the elements of computing certificate, which gives him some additional credit hours in computer science. So an interesting combination, and I think he's looking at putting that together with some work on seismic. Jake is accompanied by Dr. Mark Clues. So if you would like to say a few words, Jake.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I feel really honored to have been given this award. Really kind of came out of nowhere for me, so I'm extremely thankful. Thank you to HGS for doing this, and as well for doing it for everyone else that's been here. I've really enjoyed so far listening to everyone's stories, and I'd like to share a little bit of my story, which may be a bit different, in that I actually started from the very beginning in geology, where it seemed like everyone kind of found their path towards it. I started right there, but if you heard from my little introduction, I actually kind of deviated a few times with the Russian masochism is a great way to put it, but also computer science. And every time at UT, I kind of deviated from geology and tried those new things. I always found my way back because I thought geology, that's kind of cool. But when I did try computer science, when I came back to geology, I noticed something, and that was there was a lot of overlap, especially in areas of seismology and like computational seismology, how you can use computers to kind of aid what we've been doing for years now. And the most interesting aspect of that is machine learning, which I'm not very skilled in, but I'm working on a research project that uses a machine learning algorithm. So I'd be happy to talk about that in the Q&A section. And as well, please ask me what I'm going to use the money for, because I could spend an hour talking about that. But that's my time. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Jake. Just to reinforce some of that, I don't think there's any geologist around that's if you like, a pure geologist. Most of us have got some additional skill sets. So I know, so I was involved in a startup venture in Russia many years ago. So I came to learn a little bit of Russian for that. And I spend most of my time dealing with computers, including being able to program and script from time to time. So those skills are going to come in very useful for you. So moving on to Rice University now, to Megan Hale. Megan Hale is someone with one of the more eclectic range of interests because she's doing a double major in earth science and visual art. And she's got a particularly wide range of interests. So I'll leave it to Megan to say a few words about herself.
Hi, let's see, gotta adjust my camera. Hi, I'm Megan. First off, thank you everyone for the scholarship and the nomination. As a little bit of background about myself, I'm originally from Northwest Indiana, but I somehow convinced my parents to let me travel 1,000 miles to come to Rice. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I got to Rice, but I'm very glad that I ended up choosing earth science. I love how interdisciplinary and broad the field is, and it really allowed me to explore my interests. And I think overall, I'm a lot more on the environmental geosciences side than a lot of other people here. I am currently doing a senior thesis about the geochemical impacts of concrete in Houston's bayous. And I think I'm interested mostly in studying urbanization and pollution and their impacts on the environment in the future. I definitely plan to go to grad school at some point to continue studying these things and to continue developing as a researcher. So I'm really thankful that I got to go to Rice and start on this career path, and I'm thankful for things like this scholarship for supporting me on the way.
Thank you very much indeed, Megan. So the next one is from the University of Houston. It's David Lee. I hope I pronounced it correctly. David isn't able to be here with us this evening, so just very briefly, his bio. He's a junior at UH, studying for a degree in geology. He is affiliated with the GeoForce Texas program, which helps high school students experience geology firsthand in the field. And he's also involved in a research project with UH Endeavour STEM program. And outside of that, he seems to like the outdoors. So moving on to Lamar University and Michael Mouton. So Michael is another one of these people that's got more than one string to his bow. So in addition to his degree in geology, he's also working through the new GIS certification programming. And he'd like to find a career that combines his love of geology with his love of GIS, and ideally would like to work for the USGS in the field. He's accompanied by Dr. Edgardo Pujols. So Michael, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. So at the core, I'm a very passionate scientist, and I love working in the crustal structure and history of how it was created and deformed. As you already said, I love GIS, and I usually work with seismic and gravity data to model what is going on in the subsurface, but I like showing it on the surface as well. Many of my professors have been really influential in me getting my degree. For one, Dr. Pujols, or Dr. Ed as we call him, and Dr. Kruger have been massive inspirations to me. Dr. Ed has showed me the interesting field of structural geology and crustal deformation, and Dr. Kruger's geophysics classes opened my eyes to more than just seeing an outcrop in the field. So when I was interpreting my first seismic data with Dr. Kruger and mapping my first outcrop with Dr. Ed, that has truly made me feel like a real scientist, and I will carry those experiences with me forever. Honestly, for me, the award will be going to field camp this summer because, as we all know, it's pretty expensive and a large, arduous thing. So having the money for it is amazing. I would like to really thank the HGS and everyone here for their continuous support of us geology students and the students in general. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Michael. So next we move to Stephen F. Austin University, and the award winner there is Ethan Wagner. Ethan, in addition to studying, is an officer in the Geologic Association of Students, which brings people together that have got an interest in geology and the outdoors. He sent us a really interesting picture of some work he's doing with X-ray fluorescence on an outcrop in Texas known as the Slab. So it looks as though he enjoys being in the outdoors. Ethan is accompanied by Dr. Julie Bloxon. So Ethan, over to you to say a few words.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say, of course, thank you to everyone here. I really appreciate the scholarship. But I came into SFA as a geology major, but wasn't quite sure if that's what I wanted to do. But my first intro class with Dr. Barker, who's no longer at the school anymore, when he started talking about really volcanoes, and he showed us a documentary. I think he mentioned Mount St. Helens every single lecture for whatever reason. And something about that just kind of sparked inside me. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. I want to know more about that. I really want to know more about the Earth and how it works and all the processes that make things work. And so that's really made me want to stay in this program and continue on, especially after I graduate. Next year, I really want to go to grad school and really work in the field of volcanology, maybe in hazard management, prediction of the volcanoes. I'm not quite sure yet, but it's a work in progress. For my research, I am currently doing research with Dr. Liam Stevens in the Llano at the Slab. Like you mentioned, we are using the X-ray fluorescence device to try and figure out the geochemistry of the xenoliths in the Town Mountain granite that are exposed, and try to figure out where exactly they came from, because we can't sample these materials without destroying them. So we take that and try to compare it to surrounding outcrops and their geochemical compositions. And I find it fascinating because it's crazy how we have these rocks, but don't know really what they are or where they came from, other than that they're metamorphic xenoliths. And it was really great because this is my first research experience, and I love being in the field and collecting data. And I hope to continue that in my career as a geoscientist. But yeah, that's it.
That's good. Thank you very much indeed, Ethan. Okay, so the final undergraduate award is the Maybe Award to the most deserving most academically deserving student in Southeast Texas. This one is always a difficult one, and this year was difficult as well because there's a lot of high quality candidates, but Rachel Schroeder, I hope I pronounced it correctly, is the winner of the Maybe Award, and she's at Texas A&M University where she's studying geology. She also has maintained a GPA of 4.0. She tells us that in her junior year, she spent a semester studying abroad in Lancaster in England. And the picture over there on the extreme right of the slide is Rachel. I thought initially that may have been from the Lancaster area, but the fact that it looked like blue skies and nice weather makes me think perhaps it wasn't. But she was doing some work over there on sediment transport, and she's currently doing work on detrital thermochronology. So she's accompanied by Dr. Nick Perez, who has been mentioned before this evening. So at this stage, I'll hand it over to Rachel to say a few more words.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Joe. And thanks to everyone at HGS as well for the scholarship and for this awesome event. That photo is actually me at the top of the Permian Reef Trail. So right here in close to home. I did have some photos from doing fieldwork abroad as well. And so kind of like everyone else, I didn't start in geology. I started in engineering, and I actually jumped into my major blind. I had never taken a geology course before. I just thought it sounded interesting. But just like everyone else, one class and I was hooked. That first Geology 101 gets you. But overall, what made me really stay in geology was the impact of research. And so I worked on multiple undergrad research projects. And to me, getting to work with different professors at different institutions and even in different countries really helped show that like my passion for science and to understand the world and the large earth systems around us is really my passion now. And so I'm currently, will be starting my master's degree next year under Dr. Nick Perez at A&M. And so I'm also on that fast track program. So I'll be graduating 1 year sooner, which is really exciting to get that 2 degrees in 5 years. And so I just want to thank HGS, and hopefully after that master's, it's on to a PhD. So thank y'all.
Thank you very much indeed, Rachel. Well, that concludes the HGS Foundation part of the evening. We'll now hand it over to Mike Erpenbeck, who's going to take us through the Q&A session. And I think there's a lot of interesting questions that have already appeared. So over to you, Mike.
Okay, so when we did our simulation of the session this afternoon, nobody thought to ask the question, how do we pose a question to the whole group and get them to respond in a way that doesn't rely on everybody unmuting sequentially? And, so I think every one of you has access to chat that's at the bottom of your screen. And I would like to ask the question that, since all of you are experts in the one topic that are us old timers and even the people that are fairly new to the industry haven't had, and that is, how do you conduct your studies during a pandemic? And if you have any interesting stories to tell in that regard, how you had to maybe track down your faculty advisor or get into the lab to do measurements or any kind of story like that, I'm going to ask the group and see if you can't respond in chat to volunteer to answer that question. We'll try it that way. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go down the list and it'll take forever. Anybody want to take a stab at that? Just reply, go to chat and type in something. And I'm looking to see if there's anybody. It must have been very challenging to conduct business as usual on campus with all the stories we've heard. And I don't really see anybody here, but still waiting.
So, Mike, we have a comment here from Jake Goins. He may want to say something. And just a comment, to our Zoom manipulators, is it possible to go to gallery view for the Q&A? Diana and Linda, is that possible?
Yes, for the Q&A, the gallery view is a personal setting. If you go to your view options at the top right, you can choose gallery view. And I think if there's no screen share, it will take up, you'll see more options. So I don't know if you guys want to turn the presentation off or not, but that's your call.
Yes, I think that might be a good idea. We can do that. Fantastic. So now we can
see. Anybody see anybody with their hand up wanting to answer that question? Okay, well, let me start with a couple individual.
It's not a webinar format, so there's not a hand up option.
Okay. So
Yeah, Jake Goins has offered a couple of comments in the chat there. So maybe you want to start off, Jake?
Yeah, I'll start off. So I'm a senior, and that basically means I saved all of my easiest classes for the very end. Like I'm in government and some electives right now. But one kind of area of big stress for me was my field camp was canceled for me last summer, and that delayed my graduation 3 months, which I don't think is going to be a big deal because a lot of people are experiencing a lot of different things these days. But it was just one area where like I didn't know for the longest time like when I was even going to graduate anymore. And UT managed to get around kind of the COVID pandemic by having a super strict number of people actually do field camp last summer. But that was only for seniors that needed to do it to graduate last year. It was like, I think 6 to 8 people. So I got pushed back to this summer. So that's also another summer where I miss out on any internship opportunities or getting a job or anything like that. So that aspect for me was at least kind of a bummer. But in my first comment, I said that I feel really bad for younger children who are missing out on those like crucial formative years of school socialization, just stuck at home all the time. So COVID is bad in summary.
Okay, Eric Peavy, and by the way, I was really intrigued by your taking time off and doing the Appalachian Trail and Mount Washington and all that. Anybody else who would like to talk about extracurricular stuff they did during this COVID thing, please raise your hand or whatever too. But anyway, Eric, you had your hand up.
Yes. Yeah. So doing research during the pandemic, I actually got really lucky because I did 8 weeks of field work for my 2019 season, and then I managed to get 2 weeks in February of last year, just before things really started taking off in Texas. And so I tried to go just after Thanksgiving. I had a week where it was the week after Thanksgiving. It was the first week of December. And the 2 weeks before that, I called the landowner. I said, is there any way that we can get access? And he said, no, the family's going to be out here. They're going to be hunting. Well, what about after this? Oh, well, they've got hunters leased out for the rest of the time for mule deer and elk and things like that. And so, and he's like, yeah, and honestly, I don't really want anyone on the property for that week. And I told him, I said, please, Monday through Friday, that's all you need to give me. And he's like, okay, look, I like you. I've had a beer with you. It's fine. And so he was like, yeah, you can come out. The problem was I'd cooked a Thanksgiving dinner, and we had taken some of the food and given it to our neighbor next door. But the way that our apartment was set up is that the ventilation is actually connected between her apartment and ours. And she called me on my way to West Texas so that I could do my field work. And she was like, yeah, my kids and I both, like, we all tested positive for COVID. And I was like, right. So we stayed at a hotel in Sonora and immediately backtracked back. So I still have another week of field work that I have to get done. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done in March. I was lucky though, in that I was able to get access at Core Lab and Von Gotten Labs in Houston to look at a core in the Delaware Basin. And so things are moving along with that. And I was able to get some work done with a colleague of mine and also another research assistant. So that was very, very helpful. So things are moving along, albeit slower, but we're making the best of it.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
So question for Brianna Crenshaw. How on earth do you teach teaching geology lab during a pandemic?
It was, really highlighted people's ability to adapt, because I just had like half my students just immediately drop off the face of the earth. And then the other half of the students, I was like, all right, we're doing a virtual field trip this week, so I want you all to be on Zoom. We all have to be here at the same time, like no being late, all that stuff. because I'm going to teach you how to measure strike and dip. And it was really challenging. Yeah, it was really challenging, and I really do feel like geology is such a hands-on science, right? And so it's one thing to learn physics virtually, but it's another thing to learn how to identify, rock properties virtually, or, things like that. So I think we really did have to take a lot of the meat and potatoes out of the curriculum, but, you just do the best you can and, constantly try to adapt and get better how you can. And as a teacher, at least, that's really all you can do right now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
For that. Somebody had something here. So Andrew Stearns, how about you? You had a comment there about face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, I think this really snuck up on me after about 2 months of not being on campus, where I was very used to seeing people around just at like meetings or a department seminar, just chatting about what I was doing or working on, or like if I got to finish a poster, and you kind of just pick up ideas of like how to like use something in Illustrator, or how do I get my poster printed out tonight, or things like that. And not having that interaction really changed a lot to where like you're not reaching out to as many people as you might have before, just didn't realize that you interacted with as many people on a weekly basis at the campus as you did. So I really do miss that, and it's something that, especially going into the fall semester of last year, that I started realizing that I would really like to have back after COVID is over.
Thanks, Andrew. That was good. So how about Michael Mouton? Glued to a computer, you say, huh?
Yes, both in my lab and here in my room. I have 2 research projects this semester because I'm doing both my senior seminar and an ArcGIS project for credit. So I've been sitting at a computer probably this week for at least 12 hours today. And on last week, I was probably in my lab at school, just me, no one else there for at least 8 to 10 hours almost every other day. So it's been nice being able to work on the stuff I need to, but sitting there is kind of weird all by yourself.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. So question that people can start responding to through chat is, Charles had a question. Do you have a mentor, and what have you learned from them? For those who don't have a mentor, how are you going about planning to find one or obtain one? Anybody care to start going into chat on that one? Any hands? Can anybody see any hands?
Well, okay. I did a thumbs up, but
okay, that's good. That's a wave.
Yeah, it was something I didn't really see what I clicked. But yeah, so I think, maybe for all of us, but I think having multiple mentors has probably been one of the most valuable things that I've had. I know that I met Jeff Lund actually through Brianna Crenshaw, who's here in this chat as well. I think I was a sophomore, and I remember Jeff Lund mentioning, grow your network, as fast as you can. Whenever you're young, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people. And that was some of the best advice that I've ever received. And not just having one mentor, one confidant, having the initiative to go out and talk to multiple different people and get different perspectives and hearing different ideas was actually some of the best advice that I'd ever received, and having multiple mentors, and kind of letting all of them kind of act as bumpers, throughout your geological career, and, kind of guide you along the way. So, having multiple different sources has been my experience so far, and that's been really, really rewarding and great over the years.
Thanks, Allison. Megan, I see you have a hand up, and we also wanted to ask you another question, but were you responding to the mentor
Oh,
question?
yeah, I was going to respond to that one first. So my mentor is Dr. Mark Torres, who's here on the call with us right now. And I think the main thing that I've learned, well, I had zero scientific experience like ever coming into Rice. So I think the main thing I've learned from working with him is just to like grow in confidence as a scientist, because he's never treated any of my questions like, he's never thought that I was like asking a dumb question or like I should know something, or like everything has just been like valid, and there's been a lot of opportunities for growth, and I've definitely really appreciated that. So thank you.
The other question somebody had was, tell us more about how geology and visual arts are combining. What kind of specific things can you tell us about that?
So there are two major things that I started thinking about when I read that question. The first is that I actually took a course last spring called Visual and Graphic Design for Scientists, and it was basically about designing effective like posters and talks. And then the other thing is in my senior studio, like visual arts class, I'm creating a long-term project called Environmental Science, which is basically taking all of the trash, like the plastic gloves, pipette tips, like syringe filters, everything that I've created during my sampling and lab analysis, and I'm compiling all of that garbage and basically just putting it together into a big art project, just to kind of highlight like, oh, I'm doing stuff against pollution, but I'm also generating all of this waste at the same time, and it's kind of ironic.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Megan. Michael Mouton, did you not take your hand down from last time, or do you have something to tell us?
I would like to say something about mentors, because personally, there's two of my professors that I would consider, or that are my mentors now. One second. I would say I don't believe Dr. Ed is here, but I know Dr. Kruger is definitely my mentor, because when I was a sophomore, he invited me to be his TA for his GIS class. And ever since then, I've been working really closely with him in his work in gravity data and seismic data. And Dr. Ed is somebody that's always been there for us as our advisor and as our mentor. I would say he's very important to the entire department, and the fact that anything he does, he's showing it to us, and he wants us to be involved in his work as well.
Thanks. Oh, Leah Evans. Is that your hand I see?
Yes. I just want to add, and I think like Sydney will agree with me, being first year grad students, I just want to make a shout out to all the older grad students. I think they're great mentors to us. They kind of show us how to do, like how we should proceed with our work, and they help us learn all the new softwares. And so, like I said before, there's a few of those grad students here with us tonight. But just in general, it's the older grad students that have been a great mentor to me, for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Leah. Well, I see that we have a technical question for an individual here. Richard Robnett. There's a question, it's what is the relationship between climate forcing and tectonic forcing? I'm repeating the question without knowing much about it.
So what is the relationship between climate forcing and tectonic forcing? That's the question?
Yes. Linda, you might want to clarify that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, so, large scale tectonic activity can, have a direct effect on climate due to, say, large scale volcanism or uplift of carbonate platforms, subaerial exposure of carbonate platforms, and change the weathering of that material can change, ocean geochemistry, but I'm not really looking at that as far as what I mentioned in my project. I was more looking at So you have several large-scale environmental changes that you see take place across the Sambia-Acadian boundary. And what I look at, or am looking at, is the geochemistry and looking, trying to figure out the relative contributions of climate and or large scale tectonic activity, because at this time period I'm looking at, you do have the tectonic orogeny going on, and trying to figure out what was the cause of, say, the changes in conodont biostratigraphy that you see across that boundary, to figure out if what has been called the M4, M5 sequence boundary, that's supposed to be the base of the Acadian, looking at changes in carbon isotopes. You have the GEIS, which is the Gutenberg carbon isotope excursion, which is considered to be a global carbonated excursion, which some people have linked to climate cooling. So basically, I'm looking at all these events, seeing how synchronous some of them are, and their relationship to each other, and trying to determine, well, was it large-scale climate cooling, before the Hernantian glaciation, leading up to the Hernantian glaciation, that caused all these major environmental changes, or was it the tectonic orogeny, and whether local in some places or regional changes in uplift and or basin deepening along the southeastern margin of Laurentia, is what is now part of the southern the Appalachians. But I'm looking at the southern Appalachians, and just trying to determine what were the causes. Were they climate forced, or was it this large scale tectonic activity that forced all these large scale changes? So that's kind of what I'm dealing with. But as far as the relationship between,
well, we felt we had to put one technical question in there, and thanks a lot for letting us put you on the hot seat there. Another question for the group. Oh no, I guess this was actually for the few that made kind of changes in their paths to get where they are now in working on geology type goals. A few of you mentioned it, and is there anybody else who would like to describe kind of unusual paths that they took to get where they are in their studies and in their academic goals? Any hands or comments in the? I always thought it was kind of interesting how we all got to where we were. Anybody want to talk about a transformational event in their lives that caused them to decide they wanted to study geology? Let's see. I don't see anything here.
Stephen has his hand up.
Stephen Casper. Thank you, Stephen.
Yes, sir. Yes. I spent 11, 12 years in law enforcement. When I kind of got into law enforcement, it's oddly enough, usually one of those careers that most people have dreamed of doing that since they were, a little kid. For me, it was more kind of convenience at the time, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do right outside of high school. I had already met my now wife at that time. She knew she wanted to go through and pursue her master's and then some for mathematics. And she was ready to go to schools as soon as she graduated high school. And for me, law enforcement was kind of a convenient way to make money, so she didn't necessarily have to work while she went through school. It's also a very kind of intense career, and wasn't something that I really wanted to do. I ended up doing it for so long because the money wasn't bad, and you kind of get sucked into a little bit of a cycle with things. But I've always really enjoyed science, whether it's volcanoes. I've loved dinosaurs and fossils and such. And so oddly enough, though I didn't go into college to pursue geology, it was more physics, just some kind of science. And then after I went through a couple of classes, I realized that geology was absolutely what I wanted to study. And there wasn't necessarily one defining event that made me leave my previous career to pursue a career in geology. It was, I guess if there's one thing in particular, was my sister, who's a little bit older than I was. She told me to quit waiting for the right time, because there's never going to be a right time to quit a career, that it's just something you have to do. And that really kind of stuck with me, and that pushed me to the point where I decided I was just going to do it.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Stephen. So so are there any other questions that anybody would like to or ask anyone else, or does anybody have something that they feel they've been had their hand up but didn't get called upon? Let us know now, and if not, we're kind of running up to the end of our time anyway. But thanks to everybody who ventured their story to us, and made it very interesting for the group. And I'll let any further parting comments be made by those who are supposed to do it here in the program.
So, Mike, I just wanted to answer that last question. I had a major change on the path to geology. I thought I wanted to be a philosophy major. When I was 13 years old, my dad told me to read Plato's Republic, and it was very mind-opening. And so when I went to college, I thought I would study philosophy. And then I realized, after talking to some people, that, it's not that easy to make a living studying philosophy. But I still was going to do it. And then I took like many of the students here, a field trip was the gateway. And a professor had confidence in me in historical geology, gave me a clipboard and say, I want you to write down the notes. And the next thing you knew, I fell in love with it. And I always think that geology is the philosophical science because it unites all the different disciplines. It's a creative science. It's a visual science. A lot of the students have talked about ArcGIS tonight and the spatial relationships and solving problems. What a great group. I have to tell you that there's so many of the students also spoke about connections with industry. And I think that's really critical, is how applied the research is that so many of the students tonight are doing. Did that strike anybody else? A lot of real focused work on solving problems that are meaningful and working with teams and groups. Does anybody have any comments about teams? One of the things, Mike, just to follow up a little bit, a couple people mentioned the IBA program, which the APG hosts, the Imperial Barrel Award, and I'm so happy we have student chapter officers here on the call for APG. One of the things that I've heard from talking to some of the successful teams is that it's important to be a team. And some of the most competitive IBA teams have been very good about making sure that each of the different individuals contribute in their own ways, and that no one necessarily dominates, but that everyone has something to contribute. Are there any comments about high-performing teams that people have been on, or that experience? When you've had it, you know it, and you want to have that experience again, just working with other people that are highly talented. Are there any stories out there that anyone would like to share about teams? I can tell you a lot of the volunteer work that gets done at organizations like the Houston Geological Society and APG is done by very highly creative teams coming together. And it's one of the, I think, greatest things about these organizations. Any stories about teamwork or IBA? How about some of our student chapter officers?
Yeah, so I can add to that a little bit. So I guess what you were first talking about IBA, I can definitely say that COVID has actually impacted LSU, at least in terms of our IBA team. So last year, Helen Hammond and I were on the IBA team together, and we had 2 other students with us, and we were all first-year grad students, and we'd all taken classes together. We all talked about wanting to do IBA. We all got to know each other. But this year, because most of our classes aren't in person, the grad students, they don't have that same kind of connection. And so LSU actually didn't end up having an IBA team this year because there was just some breakdown in communication with who was interested in doing it, and just general kind of I guess lack of ambition towards the industry right now, just with it being the way that it is. And so it just goes to show you how valuable that environment is, that teamwork environment, and that physical connection is. So we had a little bit of a breakdown there, but I can say on the flip side, being the president of APG LSU this past year and working with the vice president, our treasurer, our secretary, and we actually have a social chair as well. That has really been such a great experience to figure out how to get people excited about industry, and we all have to work together to come up with events. We all have to come together we actually just had a short course this past week. It was a virtual petrophysics short course. And I mean, we all had to pull in, and we all had our work cut out for us, basically. It sounds easy, just, we'll make a petrophysics short course, just invite the professor over to teach the course and invite people. And it sounds really easy, but really there's a lot of moving parts to it. And, especially even like an event like this, it seems, just invite a bunch of people to an event, but there's tons that goes on in the background. And, in terms of teamwork, I mean, there's really a lot of communication that has to go on, and COVID has made such a challenge to that. But it's, just trying to collaborate right now is really so key.
So
it'll all end someday. I see now one more intrepid hand up there, Brianna Crenshaw. Did you have a comment?
I just kind of wanted to, comment on my experience with IBA and really, how important and critical it is to be on a team and to hear other geologists' insights. So when I did IBA this past spring, we don't have we're not a big chapter up here. We had 4 people on our team, and each one of us was really experienced in completely different things. And so we really just had to go on each other's word when the other person was like, no, I know what I'm talking about because I had this experience, and, I'm an engineer, and I'm just a classic geologist, and Corey's really experienced in sedimentology stuff and really petroleum, and I was more of just classic geology. And it was really just an eye-opening experience, not only teaching me about geology, but about people skills and about how that affects the progress of a project, and as a project goes along, it changes and all this stuff. And it really was eye-opening, truly. I think it helped me improve as a geologist to hear other people's interpretations and see the way that they connected the dots for things that you would have never even considered before. So I think as a geologist, if you can't cooperate and work together with other people, then you're really going to have a pretty short-sighted, idea of what's going on when you're interpreting data.
Thank you, Brianna, for that contribution. And I guess we can say at this point, and I hope we haven't overlooked anybody that had something to say with your hand up. But thanks to all of you. This has been a very robust session of questions and answers, and people sharing their adventures and with us. So thanks a lot. And Best of luck to all of you in your futures.
Hey, Mike, could I make one closing comment here? I have a book recommendation for everybody. One of my observations in my career has been one of the cool things about geology is it unites us across generations, which is something we're seeing tonight. And got young people like me and Sternbach and Mike Erkenbeck talking with much younger people like most of you. Mike Halbooty's biography, which is entitled Wildcatter, I had sitting on my bookshelf now for probably 30 years, and I had never read it cover to cover. I just read it about 3 weeks ago. And how old would Halbooty be if he was still alive? 100 and over 100, huh?
111.
111. If you get his biography, again, it's Wildcatter, you will see very interesting threads to all the stuff we're talking about right now. And if he was here, he would fit into this meeting perfectly.
He'd be thrilled to be part of this meeting.
And he would be thrilled.
And the Heritage has some papers. If you go to the chat, we added the PDF to the chat. It has a couple papers by Mike Halbooty. Thank you, Jeff, for those great Halbooty comments about the heritage of the petroleum geologist and how it's each of our duty. We're given a great gift in geoscience, right? We have scientific literature that we can use and read by great people who came before us. They wrote down what they learned so that when we try to solve our problems, we can go and start. We don't have to start from the very beginning. We can build on their shoulders. And so is our obligation to the future, that we need to write down our observations, present our research, give talks at HGS and APG, write papers, share what we know with others, share our gifts, share the things that we figure out in our community so that others can build on it, because we need to pay it forward. That's our obligation. We've been given a great heritage and we need to pay it forward. So there's some great papers. Also, Wallace Pratt, who's on the cover, the philosophy, it's hard to see here with the Zoom, but the philosophy of oil finding for those of you who are interested in the energy business. So what a group. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the sponsors. We really appreciate you. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to all of the students and the scholars. And by the way, we're all students, because I hate to tell you students, but lifelong learning means you're always going to be a student, and you have to approach life that way. You have to continue to learn at all stages, and that is one of the joys of life. I want to say the other thing is we've talked a little bit about sponsorship and the financial resources that these wonderful sponsors have provided. But you know, there's other resources, and they are the community, all of us together. It's, you know, I wish we could all be together in person as we have been in different previous scholarship nights, but we're using the technology tools to have a community here tonight. And as Jim Tucker, our HGS president, said in the chat, he said, you're expanding your network tonight. The people, fellow students, fellow participants, you're building your network. You have to keep doing it. Great comments about not just one mentor, but many mentors, the importance of building a mentor. And I love this quote about predicting the future. Everyone wants to try to what's going to happen. And the best quote that I found is the best way to predict the future is to create it. So make a plan. Think about deeply what you want to do, how you want to accomplish it, what are the steps you need to do to get there, and have something for the near term, maybe the long term, maybe the very long term. And of course you change it because conditions change, life changes, but plan ahead, because in life you often get what you plan. And when you don't, you just adapt. And I guess the final thing that I wanted to say to everybody is, remember HGS. HGS is a great organization. It's as has been brought out, it supports a lot of universities outside of the Gulf of Mexico. And we hope that you'll be members. If you're already a member as a student member, we hope you'll continue to be members. And I can tell you, if you stay active in your professional societies, whether they're geophysical, geological, engineering, you'll derive a great benefit. And my wife, Linda, and I we were student chapter organizers when we were in college. We organized technical programs 35, 40 years ago. We're still doing it today because it exposes you to the thought leaders and creative, wonderful people. And we've been HGS members for almost 40 years, 35, 40 years. So make it part of your plan to be active and to be connected. And we look forward to seeing you all soon at a meeting when we can get back together. Till then, thank you everybody for participating. I think it's been a great evening. And I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to hear from you. So it wasn't just having speakers with great experience, but we wanted to hear your voices. So good night, everybody. And thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.